Guys, if you missed last week, this is the table recap of part 2 of our discussion series, My Side of Iron. So if you missed last week, we certainly hope to see you tonight for our final part of this discussion series. We're going to hear from Tyler leading tonight, so we really hope to see you. But to give you a quick recap of last week and what we talked about being good friends. That's what this whole discussion is all about. It's all about being the best friends that we can be for our friends. That's my side of iron. And that whole concept of being iron comes from our main verse for the month, which is from Proverbs 27, verses 17. And it says this: as iron sharpens iron, so one person, or as some translations say, so one friend sharpens another, or another friend. So this is my side of iron. What do I need to do, or how should I be as a friend to be the best kind of friend that I should be? God wants us to be good friends. So this part 2 was focused in on 1 Samuel chapter 23, verses 7 through 16, and it kind of highlighted this whole thing of the king David, who's going to be king, and there's a current king whose name was Saul, and all the people loved David but really didn't like Saul, and so Saul was out to kill David, and David went running away from Saul, and Saul amassed a ton of people to go after David. And David was hiding, really afraid that Saul was going to kill him. And Saul's son, Jonathan, actually went up to David and gave him an encouraging word and was a good friend. And this is what he said. And Saul's son, this is 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 16, says this: and Saul's son Jonathan went to David at Horesh, where he was hiding out, and this is the big point, helped him, David, find strength in God. So part 2 of this discussion series was all about how can we be the kind of friends that help our friends find strength in God. Maybe find strength in God in the midst of what they're going through. Maybe it's a hard time, or maybe they just need to be encouraged, but pointed toward God. Good friends, my side of iron is all about helping my friends find strength in God. I as a friend need to be pointing my friends toward God. So we asked the question, and it really drove a lot of our discussion last week, which was, what is the best way to help our friends spiritually / to help them find strength in God? And we kind of talked through a lot of things, and maybe you have some examples or stories that you've gone through or have experienced and of friends who have helped you find strength in God. But we talked a lot about being an example. Like, we need to be that example. You know, when you have that one friend who loves God and they're walking close to God and serve as that good example, man, does that inspire us to be the kinds of friends who seek after God and who want to go toward God and find God attractive, especially in the midst of like some of the hard stuff of life. And I think if you grew up in church at all, I think that, or if you follow Jesus, then I think that you probably have a friend in your life who is so great at that. But we also talked about how I think the best friends who help us spiritually are the ones who maybe don't tell us exactly what to do, but they ask the right questions. And that was a huge takeaway of last week. We need to be slow to speak necessarily, but quick to listen, but we also need to be asking more questions than actually giving the advice. And so I kind of talked about how there's this pastor, Craig Rochelle, and how Craig had this guy in his life who came up to Craig and said, Craig, you're a pastor and I love you, and I think you've got a lot of people in your life who you're always helping and you're helping out, and I bet you that takes a toll. I feel God leading me to tell you that if you ever need someone to just talk to, I'm your man. I want to help you. And Craig Rochelle, who's a pastor of a very large church, the largest church in America, said that has turned into a 25-year friendship, which has been so beneficial and encouraging to me, helping me find strength in God. And he said the craziest thing is I don't think that he ever told me advice. I don't think he ever gave me advice. He always asked the right questions. And these are the questions that Pastor Craig said his friend would ask him all the time, and they're the questions that we talked about last week too, and I just want to give them to you real quick as a recap. And those questions are these. What do you think is the wisest thing to do here? So if you find your friend who is spiritually discouraged, who needs to find strength in God, what do you think is the wisest thing to do here? How do you think Jesus might respond in your situation? What advice would you give yourself if you could speak to yourself? And 4, do you really believe God is through with you? Like, you know, sometimes life gets so difficult and we get so down. And to ask the question, do you really think that God is through with you? Do you think that he's done with you? Like he's just forget about him or her? So those are the questions that we talked about last week. But the end all picture is we need to be like Jonathan, who helped David find strength in God. That's exactly what he did. So that was part 2 of this discussion series, My Side of Iron, and we hope to see you tonight for part 3 as we conclude. And next week we're going to be eating a meal together. Hope to see you there, but we certainly hope to see you tonight it's going to be an awesome night where Tyler's leading. So hope to see you in a couple of hours. Take care.